Hi everyone, my name's Emily February. I'm also known as Ranger M. I'm an environmental communicator and educator, and I get to talk to a lot of different people about all things nature and conservation. I love to knowledge share, and that's what I want to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M. Have you ever considered going into the environmental or conservation sector? Well, over this season, I'm going to talk to several young professionals who are just going into their careers or they're finishing out their education, and they're going to give us all the insider knowledge about what to do in post-secondary or early career. Today, I'm going to join Andie Albert, who is finishing her PhD and also working several different jobs. So come on, let's go catch up with Andie. Hi, Andie. Thanks so much for joining us. I was just wondering if you could tell us a bit about yourself.
Ani Andie Dejnakaj, Makododam Deshkanzibi and Dojaba. So hello everybody, my name is Andie Albert. I'm from Chippewas of the Thames and I am Bear Clan. I am currently a PhD student at Western University, and I just did on educational leave for my job at Chippewas of the Thames First Nation as a species at risk technician. But I also just started at a new consulting firm. It's about 2 years old. It's called SOAR Professional Services, and it's a consulting firm out of Nova Scotia.
Wow, what a resume, right? Like,
whole introduction.
I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about kind of where you started, your passion for the outdoors, obviously growing up a bit. Tell us about it.
As a little kid, I grew up on Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, and thankfully my parents have always been big outdoors people. So we grew up camping all the time. My whole entire summer was spent outside doing everything. My mom used to get so mad because I used to bring everything from outside inside. So yeah. I used to go outside, collect all the frogs, and put them in a little suitcase and bring them all inside. It was so bad. And I remember a few times bringing snakes into the house, and my mom just going so crazy that I bought it was just a little gardener snake, so it wasn't bad. So that definitely what sparked my passion. And then I originally went into chemical laboratory technology at St. Clair College.
Wow, what a name.
Yeah, long title. And we were kind of just throwing the chemicals down into the waste, constantly. We were just flushing them down the drain, and I did not, that didn't resonate well with me. And so I worked in that field for about 6 months, and I was like, this is not my passion. I definitely think I want to go more environmental. So I talked about it with my parents, and they supported me going back to school. I was still quite young at the time, so they were, go for it. So then I ended up going to Redeemer University. It's a private Christian university in Ancaster, and I took environmental science there, and from there my whole passion thrived. So at Redeemer, I got the opportunity to attend Ensemble Institute. So it's a field school. Okay. And I was a little upset about going because that's not fieldwork wasn't my passion at the time. I thought I would go more policy environmental or water environmental, not field work. And so I went to a 2-month fieldwork program, and my first 2 weeks I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I would call home and ask can I come home almost every single night. I was crying myself to sleep. It was bad. But after those initial 2 weeks of shell shock of fieldwork, the next month and a half, the most amazing time of my life, and definitely opened a whole new wide range of field love for the field work.
Yeah.
So I took aquatic biology, and that's why I got to study fish and water quality monitoring, and it was amazing.
So that was your undergrad,
yes.
Correct? And then what were your steps after that?
So right from, I finished at Ensemble, finished my last year at Redeemer University. So I finished with an environmental science degree, and then I applied into Western and got in for my Master of Environment Sustainability. So it's a 1-year accelerated master's course at Western. Absolutely amazing, would recommend it. You take a broad range of environmental courses, and it's super nice. It's you kind of get a taste of kind of everything environmental, from consulting to ecosystem management to GIS, using those kind of applications and stuff. And it was amazing. I loved every minute of it. So I finished that. And right after that, I kind of knew I wanted to pursue my PhD. It just wasn't exactly sure. So kind of on a whim, I applied to a PhD program and I got accepted, which didn't expect it. Well, first of all, I didn't expect to get into my master's. I applied to that super late. I think it was the second last day to apply to your master's deadline. And I was my parents just do it. And I was okay. And then I did it, and then I got early acceptance. And then the same thing happened with my PhD. I saw the opportunity come up, and I applied on the third last day. Didn't expect to even get an interview, and and I got an interview and got in.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a story.
Really never expecting it in.
I think you're a poster child for procrastination.
Yeah. Definitely have a little bit of imposter syndrome, especially going into my PhD now.
Yeah.
So
I feel that imposter syndrome a lot. I don't really know what's the root of it for myself. Like, I don't know if it's just like being a woman in kind of like a more of a man outdoorsy conservation field or what it is. But I've spoken to a couple friends about imposter syndrome and why it's so kind of like prevalent, and I'm still looking for answers.
Mine definitely stems from like being like one of my, like the first, like my parents didn't go to post-secondary.
Oh, okay.
So me and my brother are both first generation. So like when I talk to them about like university or like post-secondary, like this is a world they've never experienced. So when I'm struggling with it, they're kind of like, we would love to help you, would love to give guidance or advice, but they don't know necessarily what guidance or advice to give. But then also that's where the Indigenous centers come in at the schools I attend. So they're amazing with like the guidelines and like walking through it. So
oh, good.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it's kind of hard. I find that like even growing up, I unfortunately didn't hear too much about Indigenous struggles, reconciliation even, the steps we could take, the history of Canada itself. Then going to university, I definitely learned more. I went to Dalhousie in Halifax, but still it wasn't as prevalent as I think it could be.
Yes.
Do you find it hard being an Indigenous person and going to such a Western science academic world?
Extremely hard. So especially within my PhD, I'm doing a lot of like Indigenous work, and within that we're using traditional history, and with that a lot of the history isn't written down, it's all oral spoken. So with that, like a lot of Western sciences don't see that as validation, like they don't validate it. So unfortunately, like a lot of the history I'm not able to use, but it is the truth of like our history of our community. So that aspect is hard, but also like especially within the environmental world, being like having that strong Indigenous background and so closely connected with nature and like having this like upbringing, the way I view like the world is very much different from like a non-Indigenous person, or how like I want to steward land or teach people about like land-based learning. It's completely different, and having that validation on, especially like land-based learning, is like hard to explain to somebody who's not Indigenous or who hasn't grown up with the same like upbringing or like an open-mindedness.
Yeah, like even in my work today, we try and like find ways that we can incorporate Indigenous traditional knowledge and stuff, but it's still just like so centered around academic and like if you can prove it through research or a written paper, and it's hard, and you want, even as like a white individual, you want to bring it in, but it's like it's hard to start the conversation, start that thing, and it just like needs to happen, right? Like
I think with our generation coming up now, we are a lot more like open-minded to this, and we have been learning more about it. So like the generation below us are like growing up with it actually being talked about it within classes. And we have like Orange Shirt Day, and like we're learning about the history of everything now, which I think will only benefit for the future.
Very hopeful and positive outlook. Thank you. So just to kind of steer a bit in the other direction, can you tell us a bit more about the work you've done for Chippewa of the Thames?
I was brought on as an internship from university. I actually kind of got to touch everybody, like I got to dip my toes in everything.
Oh, very fun.
Yeah, so I got to work with all of my colleagues there, and my director kind of was like, Andie, like what is your passion? Like what do you want to bring to the table in here? And I was like, oh, like I'm not too sure. It's like whatever you want me to do. He's like, no, like if you're gonna be working with us, like you need to be passionate about what you're doing. So like I've always been super passionate about like turtles and snakes and fish. Like those are like my specialties. So he was like, sure, do the speech to the risk program, because he was like, that all fits in there. So then he kind of like let me have free reign and was like, go get it, tiger. So that's basically what I did. So we did some speech to the risk work back in 2012 to 2014, and then it completely went on hold until I came into the department. And from there, I kind of built up this speech to the risk program that's now been going.
Wow.
So it is like, it's obviously just a baby program. We're not like pit tagging or like tracking turtles yet. We're just still like finding gestation spots for the snakes or doing snake boards. And so like it's still like very much a like a small speech service program, but over the years, like that's what it takes. It takes time to grow.
Yeah, and I believe you worked with Scott Gillingwater, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I've actually interviewed him a couple times. He's so knowledgeable.
Literally my idol.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was like, I want to be you when I grow up.
Yeah. And like, how fitting is his name? Like Gillingwater. Like,
I know.
Were you meant to be doing this? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I know that you have done some work with spiny softshell turtles, and I love those little pancake guys.
So, fun little fact about the spiny softshell is we have quite a few nesting spots along like our nation with the spiny softshells. So back 2 years ago, from the time that I've been working there, so it's been about 3 or 4 summers now that we've been working. So the first summer we knew where their nesting spots were, but we didn't go collect the eggs just because we have to get approval by chief and council. And it was kind of still COVID and stuff was still happening. So then the second year we were finally able to collect all the eggs, took them all the upper Thames, incubated them, brought them back. We released over 105 little swinies back. It was amazing. Nice. But then these last 2 summers, we can definitely see the impacts of climate change, even within our First Nation, impacting these spinies nesting spots. Because we can see the Thames River and how much it has been flooding these last 2 years.
Yes.
So with the rainy seasons now being a lot more in July and August, we unfortunately, well, in June, we are unfortunately seeing our spiny nesting spots all get flooded out.
Yeah.
So the last 2 years, we have lost all of the eggs due to the flooding. And this year we were pretty keen on getting out there a little bit earlier, but even going out 3 weeks earlier, it was already flooded.
Yeah. When people think climate change, they think of like the global south, the equator countries, stuff like that. And I'm like we can see this in London. Like you can see this here.
Our little nation, so we have an elder on our reserve, and he has been super observant of like all of the different changes of like the different tree species, the different bugs that we are seeing. So sometimes we take him out for like a little UTV ride and just tour around the community, and he talks about the changes that are happening over the time. And he has pictures from when he first got his cell phone, his little flip phone, he was out there taking pictures. So it's amazing that I have this elder who is like so concerned with the environment and able to see all these environmental changes, especially with like, he doesn't bring it back to climate change, but like we're educating him like this is climate change and this is going to continue to happen. And especially just seeing how our Thames River is now like flooding plains that it never used to flood, or like now the flooding seasons kind of changed because like we used to have completely dry summers where the Thames would be like almost a drought at the bottom. Like you could walk straight across the Thames to like Oneida half the time, but now it's like, it's even scary to go kayaking down it right now.
Yes. That was kind of your role at the Chippewa of the Thames.
Yes.
And then can you tell us a bit more about your job that you are doing right now?
So I just started at SOAR Professional Services. We just call it SOAR. I started part-time just because I am in school for my PhD. So I work about 20 hours a week. So it's this amazing consulting firm that is all Indigenous led, and about 80% of like the team is Indigenous. Oh, wow. And we are spread basically all across Canada, from Nova Scotia. We have some in Ontario, and then we have quite a few in BC and like in between. So we work with alongside Dylan, and then we bring the Indigenous perspective side. So if a client wants an Indigenous perspective side, or like a two-eyed seeing lens on the environmental assessments and environmental impacts, that's kind of where we get brought in.
What exactly is two-eyed seeing?
So two-eyed seeing is a term coined from Dr. Albert Marshall, and it's like looking from 2 lenses. So the one eye seeing the Indigenous side and how important it is to include those Indigenous perspectives, but then also acknowledging the other eye and being able to see the Western science does have a benefiting role too. So it's kind of like bridging those 2 worlds, or like weaving the 2 worlds together, knowing that like the Indigenous people have lived on this land and have like seen kind of all this, but also like putting the Western science behind everything too. Kind
of a very new path for you. Do you think like this is kind of where you'll keep going? Do you want to dip your toes in some other things, or what's the future?
So this question's always so scary when you get asked, especially because I am just starting my PhD. Like I feel like I've only dipped my toes into that now. I started my PhD because I do want to teach. Okay. So I do see myself teaching in academia just because of like being Indigenous and wanting to bring the two-eyed seeing lens into all the environmental work that I am doing, and being able to teach youth about that. So that is kind of like my end goal, but I really enjoy SOAR Consulting right now. It is such an amazing team. Everybody working there works so well together. It feels like family.
If your path goes down the way of the teacher and stuff, obviously like you're making such a huge leader of yourself for your community. I just love that. Do you find that you're able to bring a lot back to the community as well, kind of thing?
That's like my whole goal, is to bring everything back to the community, and that's like how I felt a strong connection to work with my First Nation for so long.
Yeah.
Doing the Speeches at Risk program. I like my community also assists helping to fund me through my post-secondary, so I feel like I owe everything back to my home community.
Part of this is to discuss career paths and what we can kind of dive into in the conservation outdoor world. For people that are thinking of their post-secondary, do you think it's a good idea to kind of continue into our masters and post PhDs and stuff like that? I actually didn't do that route. Always thought I would, but life happens, and I got a job and I didn't want to like let it go because I'm like scared. But what do you think? Do you think it really like has helped you, grown you, kind of thing?
So after my undergrad and getting my job with Chippewas at the Thames, I didn't, at the beginning, like I kind of knew I wanted to do my master's, but it was kind of like a more spur of the moment. It was the imposter syndrome holding me back.
Right.
It was like the intergenerational trauma kind of holding me back, or like the relationship that Indigenous people do have with like colonials, education systems. And so all of that was kind of holding me back. But I really enjoyed doing my master's, but master's and PhD isn't for everyone. I do know that I had an amazing job coming right out from undergrad in the environmental world. I got into the Speeches at Risk program pretty quickly. I don't think you need necessarily move on. If field work is kind of like just that and you got into the world, like a consulting, you don't need to go on. But moving on to my master's has broadened the field I can work in.
Yeah.
So I would say that. So I do have quite a few more opportunities, or like even just like the connections you make from doing your master's does give you a lot more connections and stuff like that. And then now going into my PhD, I have already got given postdoc opportunities. A couple, 3 universities have already reached out and like, we want you to do your postdoc with us.
Wow.
So it's kind of nice, but like I'm nowhere close to the end yet. So that's like so far in the future thinking, but now putting the postdoc on my radar, like that is now something that I probably will pursue.
Yeah. What do you think is one of the most challenging things that you've encountered or that we can encounter in the conservation career sector?
And I think the only thing that I kind of like don't love is obviously like the super hot days, but those are the best days to find turtles and snakes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I can't complain. Or like the camping outside when you're doing like bat surveys overnight or owl surveys in the night. Like those ones I'm like don't love doing, but like at the same time, it's amazing when you catch an owl.
Yeah.
The nights when you don't catch any owls, kind of like, oh, why am I doing this? But it is amazing when you do catch that owl, like getting to see all the different species. So there's definitely pros and cons. But
I mean, as the sweatiest human on this planet, probably, I definitely don't like the hot days. And then you add in the mosquitoes, I'm like, ugh, like walking through the forest, I'm like, God,
this past summer I got to work up past Perry Sound quite a bit, and the black flies
takes chunks.
So wearing my bug net all the time, didn't love that. But here in like the southwestern Ontario, we kind of don't have that. So I definitely appreciate my field work here better than up there in central Ontario.
But we have ticks down here more than they have up north.
I am like desensitized to ticks. Like they don't even bug me anymore. Like I came out of one of my days when I was out searching for turtles, I walked out with over 100 ticks on me. It was bad. You could see them crawling up your legs, and they just don't bug me the way black flies do, because like you have time to catch them when so if you're just like changing and like checking yourself and checking your hair, like
it's like one time I wanted to cut off all my hair because I'm like finding them coming out, and like one time I woke up in the middle of the night, I'm like, something's crawling on my leg.
That is the worst. That's the one time that I'm like, okay, I just brought everything home in bed with me. And even after checking, like getting my parents to check my hair, and then you find one after, I'm like, where did you even come from?
Where? I literally tracked every inch. So now we're gonna do a fast round, some fast facts with Andie. What is your favorite university that you've attended so far?
That's such a hard question, because I loved Redeemer for like multiple different reasons, but my time at Western I felt was so much, like I learned so much from Western, and the teachers there, like all the professors there, like it was amazing. And the Indigenous Center at Western, super, like it was an amazing quick 1-year program, and I'm happy to be going back to my PhD there. Perfect.
We'll allow both. What's your favorite reptile?
That's an easy question. The Asian hognose snake.
Oh, it's my favorite snake.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's so cool when they play dead
Yes.
and then you can kind of handle them, and then they just wake up and they're like, gotta go.
See ya.
Yeah,
But also like their little noses.
yeah. But then this past summer, I did get to work with the Massasauga rattlesnake.
Did you?
Yes, so I actually got to take 2 of them. So very cool opportunity.
Whoa.
And very like, because we don't have that down here in
No.
Southwestern Ontario. It was amazing to actually get to see them like
Wow.
out doing their thing.
What's your favorite animal, period?
My favorite animal, a shark.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, quick.
In undergrad, I wish I could have gone to like Miami or something to go study sharks, but I'm extremely close to my parents and like my family, and like sticking home to my First Nation was very high on my list. But
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of like shark tattoos.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who is your biggest role model?
Okay, kind of already said about Scott Gillenwater within like this world. Like he is just like amazing with all of the work he does. Like he's so dedicated
Yeah.
to doing his Species at Risk program. I kind of like wanted to base mine off the work that he does, but like he spreads himself so thin
Yeah.
and like he is dedicated
Yeah.
to his work.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll get like that, but he kind of Upper Thames, I work with Upper Thames quite a bit. Scott just knows everything about everything. And so I kind of talk about that with them, and they're like, you can't know everything at like such a young stage of your career. And so like if you just take the time to like learn like 5 trees or like 5 bird calls or like 5 plant trees summer, like you'll eventually get there where Scott is at too.
Oh, I
So-
like, what a tip.
Yeah.
Wow.
So each summer since I've been like taught that with Upper Thames, I have taken the time to learn like, okay, maybe not the trees necessarily, because trees just don't make sense to me, but I have learned 5 new spring plants each year.
Okay.
I have about 25 bird calls down and like bird sightings.
Gosh, I'm working on my birds.
It takes time, and then I know my fish and I know my snakes and my reptiles, so it's like the different things that like associated with the environment that like our other species are in, it takes time to learn those too.
What's your favorite Great Lake?
Ooh, Lake Erie.
Fast. I have to think about it. I'm like, pros and cons. Is it because you grew up kind of right next to Lake Erie, or what's your connection?
Yeah, I don't really know. I feel like there's a lot of like historical backing to Lake Erie, and it's like talked about quite a bit in our treaties.
Okay.
So
cool.
just kind of growing up, it was always talked about, and I just listed as one of my favorites.
Yeah. What's your most rewarding experience thus far in your career?
Definitely releasing my spiny shells back into the
Yeah.
Thames. It was amazing. It felt like I was playing Mother Earth for a couple of minutes. It was a very humbling experience getting to see, because like we do know all of our turtles like on the endangered list, especially our spinies, and we know like the risk of them, like the rate of survival is like 5%.
Yeah.
So it's extremely low, and not really seeing too many of them within our Thames, it was like disheartening, but being able to release all those back,
Yeah.
it was an amazing experience. And we did bring out the whole rest of our Treaties, Lands and Environment team at Chippewa out to go release the turtles. And so watching people who don't necessarily get to work with the different species come out and be amazed with this and be like, wow, this is what you guys do.
Yeah.
And like them get to also see the babies.
Yeah.
Very cool
Yes.
opportunity.
Yeah. And of all the turtles, like spinies are just so different.
So,
I
and like
love
when
them.
they go sprinting in the water, like
Yeah.
their little snouts are sticking out
Yes.
still, it's
Yeah.
so cute.
Yes. Well, that is my speed round. But I want to say thank you so much, Andie. Like, you're just like such a great talker and you make everyone feel welcome and warm. And I just love how positive you are and your outlook. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.